So I'd like to call us to order. Thanks for coming to the Fairfax Town Council meeting, and we start by our Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. I would like, well, first on the agenda actually is right after Pledge of Allegiances. I'd like to recommend everybody welcome our new town manager, Garrett Toy, who's here. And should we break for cake right away? I don't know. You want to do it at the break?
You want to get started, whatever you want to do.
Okay.
Fast cake.
How about a fast? People want to start out with a piece of cake. Okay.
Fast cake.
How about a fast? Yeah, 5 minute. Yeah. Okay. Let's do it. All right. We have, I hope everybody enjoyed the cake, and the cake is, it's kind of ceremonial, and we're welcoming Garrett Toy, our new town manager, but I also want to acknowledge the person who got the cake and who has been doing a superlative job with all sorts of details for years and continuing, and that is interim manager Judy Anderson, also our town clerk. So. Words escape me, but I could go on for a while, and I won't, just to spare everybody that, but I can't imagine us getting anybody to replace Judy who would be as good as that. So, yeah, perhaps that's not enough said, but whatever. Roll call will show that one of us is absent. Ryan O'Neill has called in sick tonight because he doesn't want to get all of us sick. I think Larry is sitting apart from us at a different seat because he is also sick. I possibly. Is this better like that? Okay. Sorry. So roll call will show that everybody's here except for Ryan O'Neill, who has called in sick. Let me see. I guess not on this agenda is the fact that we have another agenda item. We're going to have a meeting within a meeting at 9 o'clock, thereabouts. That will be in relation to an announcement that was made earlier today. And should I announce what that is at this time? I received over the weekend a letter of resignation also from Ryan O'Neill because he has bought a house just outside of Fairfax, and we'll talk about it at 9 o'clock. So next on the agenda is approval of the agenda, an affidavit of posting, and I think we have one item to continue. Is that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I guess this is my first official action. I'd like to thank Judy for the cake. Secondly, staff would like to actually request a continuance to item 15. That would give the opportunity for staff and Sustainable Fairfax to go ahead and come back to you actually with a revised agreement for your review on the first meeting in March.
Okay, well, that sounds good. Is there any other agenda items? Okay, well, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Second.
Okay, so we have actually motion Weinsoff and a second Hartwell. How's that? And announcement of closed session action. We have voted not to appeal to the California Supreme Court on the Berg matter. And we also gave direction for staff on 2 other litigation issues. And I think that's, we didn't take further action on those. We just gave direction to staff. So let me see, meeting protocol. The mayor shall maintain order at the meetings in accordance with Robert's Rules of Order, and the council has a responsibility to be a model of respectful behavior in order to encourage community participation and citizen input at council meetings. The council and the audience are expected to refrain from using profane language and or ridiculing the character or motives of council members, staff, or members of the public, and to maintain the standards of tolerance and civility. The town council will review the agenda at 10 p.m. to ascertain whether items will be heard that evening and which, if any, will be continued to another meeting. Any matter not started by 11:30 p.m. will be continued to an adjourned or regular council meeting unless the council votes to suspend this rule. Please turn off all cell phones or place them in the silent mode. And we have a number of announcements. The Fairfax Food Pantry is every Saturday morning at 9 to 11 at the Fairfax Community Church, 2398 Sir Francis Drake Boulevard, and volunteers are needed there. It's a really great service, and it's feels great to help people get food that they need. And if you need food, just come and get a bag of groceries. It's a good thing. There's 1 vacancy on the volunteer board for a full 3-year term to November 30th, 2015. There's a vacancy on the Fairfax Youth Commission for a Ross Valley youth between 14 and 19 years of age. They don't have to be from Fairfax, but somewhere in the Ross Valley. There's a vacancy for a youth commissioner to serve on the Parks and Rec Commission for a 2-year term. There will be a workshop called Backyard Beekeeping. It's sponsored by the Volunteers of Fairfax and Sustainable Fairfax on Saturday, March 1st. It's at 10 a.m.
It's like you said, March 2nd.
March 2nd, sorry. Saturday, March 2nd is that beekeeping thing, and it sounds interesting. It's 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And I'm not sure where that is. Do you know where that is?
Is it here?
Is that it? That's in this very room. Symphony of the Soil is a film by Deborah Coons Garcia. That's Friday, February 22nd, 7 p.m. in the Women's Club, also this room. The Planning Commission vacancy. Planning Commission has a vacancy effective February 28th, 2012 for a full 4-year term. So if you're interested in that, please, there's an application at front desk in Town Hall. And we have another, there is on Saturday, March 9th, from 11 to 3 in the pavilion, there is a Focus Fairfax Open Circle Arts and Sports sponsored family clothing, toy, and equipment swap in the pavilion. Swap your unused items or unwanted for other things. And there's $15 per family at the door to participate. And I guess that's if you've got a pile of stuff to swap. It's geared towards families 0 to 10 years old, so I presume that refers to the kids. And there's a whole, this is what the poster looks like. There's a whole list of items that are appropriate, and I won't read them all. And that's it for announcements. Next we have some reports and presentations, and the first report is one by me, actually. Report by Mayor Reed explaining the unauthorized flyer recently distributed with erroneous information about downtown center plan that was not adopted. And here it is. Good. Yeah, I guess a lot of people probably have seen a flyer going around town. I don't have a copy to hold up here, but it has a map on one side and talks about Bolinas turning into a pedestrian mall that is being actively worked on. Let me see. Here's the prepared thing. I'm just going to read it because I might ad-lib a little bit. But recently, an anonymous unsigned flyer was distributed to many Fairfax residences, which was often mistaken by recipients as having come from the town. It encouraged people to contact council members and our planning director to give feedback on what it described as a plan that was being implemented to close Bolinas Road to cars. It also contained a couple of sections Xeroxed out of the general plan. The sections copied and distributed reflected a possible option that was suggested by the public. These options were included along with a study to see if the ideas were possible in the general plan. Unfortunately, when just a tiny part of something is quoted, an incomplete picture often results. And this plan, quoted as being implemented, is actually one possible option that will be considered in the future during a public discussion. I mean, speaking as one of the dozens of people that contributed countless hours to our general plan, I would like to clarify. The downtown area section of the general plan grew out of two major periods of outreach that the GPAC, which is the General Plan Advisory Committee, made in roughly the year 2000 and 2005. GPAC is Fairfax's all-volunteer committee that wrote the majority of the general plan, along with a lot of input from the Fairfax public. Where was I? These GPAC volunteers saved Fairfax several $100,000 and also gave us a general plan that really reflects the Fairfax we all know and love and protects the town and our public's right to have input. During the process of writing the plan, a number of public outreach efforts, including public workshops, were held. In particular, there were several workshops on the downtown area. The traffic light on Drake was one of the subjects on the agenda. While it does function for traffic going through town on Drake, ever since it was changed from a four-way stop sign 20 or so years ago, it's made the other intersections around it a mess. People in cars regularly run the stop signs on Bolinas, Broadway, and Bank so they can get through the light at Drake and Klaus while it's still green. Many pedestrians have learned to watch that light while crossing Bolinas or Broadway because if it's green, they cross at their peril. Extending Bank Street to Sir Francis Drake is one of the options that could help this situation. Bank Street used to go through there before the gas station was built, and the town still has an easement, so there's no purchase involved in that. And that's one of the things that came up in the general plan, in these workshops, I'm sorry, and it's a feasibility study is in the general plan. GPAC did not come up with the idea of changes to Bolinas. The Fairfax public did at the workshops held to explore all ideas in downtown. Once the idea of a pedestrian-friendly area was suggested by 3 of the 6 different breakout groups of the public in one workshop, an enthusiastic majority developed within these workshop participants. Enthusiasm was not unanimous. There were a few that felt strongly against it at that time, and this is Fairfax, and we're always going to get that, I think. Nevertheless, as the public had spoken during these workshops, this led the GPAC to include this idea in the range of possibilities for the general plan as something that should be considered. Crane Consulting was already hired to do traffic counts as part of the circulation element as required by California law, which is where you look at all the different intersections around town and see how workable they are, and they get letter grades as to how long it takes to get through the intersection. And since a lot of the information already gathered for that would be needed to see if the various Bolinas options were doable, their scope of work was increased to include an evaluation, which you see in part of the appendix of the general plan. And a piece of that was what was Xeroxed for that flyer. When the council went to approve the general plan a couple of years ago, we recognized that much more discussion was needed on this, especially since it had been 5 years since the last public input. At this point, well, actually, we've been getting a lot of input in the last month, but aside from that, it hasn't been workshops or anything like that. So we redacted. That means we took out the Bolinas option section of the plan and recommended the future public conversations about it instead. It's a big deal, and anything like that needs a lot of weigh-in by the community, and that's why the info on what has happened to date is in the appendix and not in the body of the plan. I would like to encourage everyone to participate in upcoming conversations and workshops about this. This is our community's shared space. There are all sorts of uses that it needs to function for, and if we explore those together and the solutions together, perhaps we can come up with a plan that lets it work for everybody. So hopefully that clarifies that a little bit.
Mayor, I think you left out a paragraph, and had I written it, it would have been a rather blistering paragraph to the author or authors of this report. What you don't do in Fairfax is take a piece of paper, make it look like a town document, circulate it around town, throw it into mailboxes, which is illegal, and put everybody's name on it but yours. In the future, we have a very orderly process here, particularly on land use issues. As the mayor pointed out, we discuss things at phenomenal length. We are amazingly transparent. What we don't do is make decisions and not let any of you know about it and send a flyer around town and say, hey, by the way, we're going to close Bolinas Road. That's not who we are. That's not how we operate. So I would ask in my nicest tone of voice that for anybody who wishes to have that conversation with the town in the future, please do it in the most orderly and transparent way as your government does. And please do not scare the community to taking, I received, and I'm sure other members of the council, staff received 2, 3 dozen memorandum. Most of these by members of the community who just didn't say, good idea, bad idea, but were rather extensive in their thoughtfulness and their comments. They took a lot of time about something that doesn't exist. That's not fair. That's not fair to them. It's not fair, certainly, to staff that had to respond to it, the least of it, but it's not fair to the council members who all had to respond. In the future, let's do things the Fairfax way. Transparent, above board, and legal. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess I was, I think you were polite also, you know, I mean, thank you for that restraint. And yeah, it's never fun to have something put out with people interpret to be, you know, in your name. So I just thought it was important to clarify. Is there any other comment by any other members? Okay. So that was that report. Item number 2 is a Zero Waste Committee report on accomplishments and goals of the Zero Waste Committee. And this is Chelsea Donovan.
I apologize, my computer's going to go on in a second.
Sure. Hi, Town Council. Thank you for letting me have the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Chelsea Donovan. I'm the Executive Director of Sustainable Fairfax, and I wanted to talk to you about our Zero Waste Initiatives program. Sure. Sorry. Is this better? Okay, great. That's going to be loud. As we near 1 year of our Zero Waste 2020 initiative, Sustainable Fairfax has developed a community zero waste committee that helps educate and drive local recycling and composting programs. There you go. You got it. We've worked to divert valuable resources from the landfill during large-scale events and through everyday practices, both commercially and residentially. We've collaborated with county and local task forces, officials, community leaders, and businesses. We've made a local and county-wide impact and are motivated to continue our programs as well as expand our reach. I have to say we were flattered recently by receiving news from Marin County Solid and Hazardous Waste Joint Power Authorities and MSS that we've become a nonprofit model of how we can implement and work with local governments on zero waste initiatives. And we also heard that the rest of the cities in the county are looking towards us, so we have a lot more work ahead of us. So in your packet that we provided lists all of the accomplishments, the goals, and the programs and projects that we've achieved. So I'll just highlight a few. But before I do that, I wanted to talk a little bit about our Community Zero Waste Committee. Renee Goddard, our program coordinator, myself, and the board members of Sustainable Fairfax recruited members from the community to start our first local zero waste committee in June 2012. The committee currently consists of 12 members, 12 very passionate, dedicated members that have helped implement these programs and continues to grow today. We're very excited to have 2 Drake High interns from the studies of the Environment Academy Drake Integrated Studies program. These interns are working with us on helping implement a commercial recycling program, and their specific goal is to create a recycling system for the high school that will also act as a model for other high schools in the county. Okay, so some of the programs I wanted to highlight, and where I think we've really made some of the largest impacts, is coordinating recycling and composting at local events. Specifically the Fairfax Festival. That's obviously, as you all know, an event that has lots of people, in fact over 10,000 people come to that event. We successfully consulted with MSS, or the Marin Sanitary Service, California Conservation Corps of North Bay, the town of Fairfax, to design zero waste stations. During that event alone, we were successful in diverting 94% of our resources from the landfill. That was a significant achievement because last year it was 20% greater than the year before. We've had these zero waste stations, which also act as an education outreach piece for the community at many different events. For example, the craft fair, the Fairfax picnic, also the very first event, Streets for People. We had Boy Scouts that were trained to help staff these zero waste stations, provide education and outreach to the community, and they enjoyed themselves. It's kind of fascinating when you see people gather around the garbage can for a conversation. Another important program that we're in the process of implementing right now is a commercial recycling program. We're actually at the implementation phase right now, and we're doing this in accordance with AB 341. The program is designed to facilitate and educate business owners on installing recycling systems. So we're very excited, and we think that we're going to have quite a large impact here. And again, the goal is, as we create these model businesses, to help promote, educate the community, let them know what they're doing, and hopefully other businesses will also follow suit. We have a very successful residential composting program. Many of you may know that the compost was brought back to town. We were very successful in promoting that compost. I believe we had 3 drop-offs, and within 48 hours, all of the compost was gone. So the residents were able to use that for their backyard gardening. And one large event that we have planned for April 27th is called our Take Back Day. We're working with MSS, the town, and local businesses to create the first Take Back Day, which is going to be a large-scale event specifically for outreach and education on reuse and recycling options. We'll have an e-waste station, a paper shredder, and our very first prescription drug take-back station. This is going to be a phenomenal opportunity to interface with the public and show them how the services that MSS has and other ways to divert the resources from the landfill. So that's just a brief overview of the program that we have, and we have a lot more to do, so thank you for your support.
Yes. Yes, thank you very much. And I'm sure there's all sorts of good things coming yet from that. A worthy endeavor. Next on the agenda, actually I should have announced this earlier. I got an email just before this meeting. Holly Bragman, who is going to give a volunteer board chair report, is sick, and she's going to do that in March, so we don't hear that. So next on the agenda is Barbara Petty with the annual town treasurer's report. So.
Good evening, and I just wanted to extend my welcome to Mr. Toy. Looking forward to working with you. This is a very brief report. This is our cash balances as of December 31st. We have a total of $1,955,714, of which $1,415,900 is in the LAIF account, earning a whopping 0.326%. We have $463,765 in the Bank of Marin checking account and $76,048 in the Bank of America checking account, which, as you know, is being phased out. But we have some funds that are automatically deposited in there, so we're keeping it open for convenience. Any questions?
Are you going to come every month and give us this blisteringly interesting cover, or are you?
If you would like.
No, I was just thinking for time management, we could delegate this off to our.
Well, it is actually, it's a mandated report at least annually. I've been doing it semi-annually, but it is mandated.
All right, see you soon.
All right, thank you.
Well, semi-annually is not every month, so, that's good. So thank you, Barbara. And next on the reports and presentations is actually a video presentation, and this relates to one of our items on the agenda. It's basically, actually, no, it's a video presentation and adoption of resolution number 13-5, a resolution of the Town Council of Fairfax in opposition to the construction of the proposed Keystone XL tar sands pipeline. And
Could I
do you
just,
wanna make an
just in terms of time management, I think the supervisor is here to address us in open time, are you not? So it might be better, because I know she's suffering from the same ailment I am, if we could move this, we'll put open time next, and then we'll do this after open time.
That's fine with me. Is it fine with the rest? Okay. Well, let's do that. So we're putting open time, switching number 5, this video presentation, with what's to come right after that, which is the open time for public expression. There's a 3-minute limit per person. If you wish to address the council, please approach the podium and state your name and address. Individuals have 3 minutes to speak, 5 minutes if you're representing a group. This is the time set aside for individuals wishing to address the council on matters not listed on the agenda. State law, Government Code Section 54954.2, provides that the council is not permitted to take action and strictly limits the right of the council to discuss any unagendized item unless it can be demonstrated to be of an emergency nature or the need to take immediate action arose after the posting of the agenda. So, Katie, you're up first.
Open time. I actually came for a couple reasons. I have some business items to give a download to the council on. I wanted to say goodbye to Ryan on his last evening on your council, but I guess
Maybe
I'm
he's
doing
watching
that.
at home.
Bye, Ryan. You did a great job. I think your colleagues are going to miss you lots, and I know that the town will miss your commentary and insight. And then I wanted to also, I've known Judy for a long time. We had kids the same age, so we spent time on the edge of the soccer field together and baseball field, and I know that how hard, and I've worked with you a lot in the past in my former capacity, and I just have a lot of admiration for the work that you've done for this town, and you were just stellar sitting in as the interim manager, and I applaud you. I just wanted to acknowledge you personally. And then welcome to Garrett in your new capacity. Quick download, report out. First of all, I, late one night, not being able to sleep, tapped into a Fairfax Town Council meeting. It's quite something. You all are always the most thoughtful, I think, and civil, frankly, and have a great conversation. And the item on the agenda was the renovations to the center field bathrooms. And I just wanted to clarify something. I truly respect David's position on the supervisor's discretionary fund, and his position, and maybe yours as well, others individually, echoes what a lot of people feel out in the community. And I wanted to clarify one first thing. The funds actually that have been identified to help pay for that renovation are coming out of what's called the Community Partnership Capital Fund or something like that. It's the same fund source that helped pay for the Fairfax siren back in 2007, that helped pay for Perry Park at some point, 2004, 2005. So it is a different source, and frankly, these were monies that were set aside by Supervisor Brown around the pavilion and center field renovations effort that was launched many years ago and kind of petered out. So I just want to clarify that, if that makes you feel any better, David, and maybe when the contract comes up. And then I also just want to say more generally about the Supervisor's Discretionary Fund, which, as you may or may not know, is being, the CAO, our county administrator, is trying to find a way to rework it, turn it into a community grant program that has separation from the supervisors, though ultimately we end up having to approve any grant that goes out the door anyway. And I really believe it's important to try to keep a grant program like this available. It has served communities around Marin County, organizations, towns, nonprofits in so many little ways, and most of the time unseen, and even as the grand jury pointed out, it has not been abused. So everything from helping get sustainable Fairfax off the ground, or chamber events, or help pay for, I think, your Parks and Rec, a youth after-school program. That's the kind of stuff that discretionary fund was going towards, and I'm hoping we're able to devise a program that creates the kind of transparency and fairness, and but that separation too from the supervisors, so that people can feel more comfortable with it. Anyway, so that's that. Too much on that probably, but. Let's see, next, I wanted to, this is something you may have been reading about, the 101 Green Bray project, and I don't want to call it the 101 Green Bray Interchange Freeway project, because frankly it's more than a freeway project. And this is the Transportation Authority of Marin project that's being funded through RM2 funds, that's Regional Measure 2 funds, that are toll funds coming from everybody crossing the bridges in the Bay Area. And I'm bringing it to your attention because this has been 10 years in the making. We've gotten finally to a proposed solution, not set in stone yet, that has gotten a lot of pushback from the communities out on Corte Madera and Larkspur, and individuals for various reasons, and some of them I think very valid. But I'm concerned that I want to bring the Ross Valley cities and towns more into the conversation about this, because I think it's really important that we don't lose the opportunity to do something with these RM2 funds. One, to improve the interchange there in terms of safety issues, also in terms of east-west corridor auto traffic, but more importantly, in the scope of a project that incorporates those kinds of improvements, we can also make a lot of bike and ped and transit connectivity improvements. So I'm hoping you're paying attention to it, the council or individually, and I hope that you will consider keeping, maybe taking an action. Keep our feet to the fire to come up with a project that works, but let's not shut the door on it. So I wanted to bring that to you. And then finally, I wanted to thank David, Councilman Weinsoff, and Mayor Reed for your participation and support in a couple of meetings around the Ross Valley Watershed Program. Both of you are strong advocates for your town and for making sure that this region-wide watershed program is taking care of everybody in the region. And I just wanted to assure you that I'm keeping my pressure on staff to be moving forward. The projects are not going to be necessarily welcomed by the community, and they were going to take a lot of education. It takes a lot of partnership. We're going to need to be working together to develop projects that work for our communities. But I just want to assure you that I'm out there looking out for everybody. And I think that this program, this watershed program that talks a lot, that is going to speak to and address our flooding issues, and as well as watershed issues, is also very important. And I just appreciate you continuing to participate and really partner up. I'm glad you're staffed up. So that you can start working more with staff on the tools, the pieces that need to get in place to move that forward. So anyway, I just want to thank you all. And know you can always pick up the phone and talk to me, and constituents as well. I'm here for all of you. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Katie.
Thanks for letting me come up.
Sierra Salen, welcome to town, Garrett. Congratulations, condolences, and good luck. Fairfax is unique, and we have all kinds here. I'm representing my group self, so does that mean I get 5 minutes? The opinions expressed do not necessarily disagree or agree with anything, nor have anything to do with realty. For the downtown plan, I don't think it goes far enough. I suggest that we ban cars entirely from town and return the area to its natural state. And general plan, you're talking about the appendix. What happens if the appendix for the general plan has to get removed? Will you have to start from scratch and start over again? Because appendixes sometimes, they get toothbrush bristles stuck in them or whatever. I've also noticed there's been a lot of bank robberies lately around, and I just want to say it's like, I've been robbed at Bank of America. Chris Morin kind of took me out from there and talked to me, and that was another thing. But I find it interesting, and part of me says, yes, Robin Hood. It's like people are starting to rob banks. It's like I think it's unfortunate that it's scary. People might have weapons or whatever, and I don't want to see that happen. But I think the banks have robbed us long enough, and we need to somehow turn that around because the banks really are robbing us, and people going in and robbing banks on the spot isn't necessarily so good, but I'm tired of the banks robbing us. You also said something about no profane language. What's wrong with the word profane, and what's wrong with the word language? Profane, profane, profane. Language, language, language. And that. Oh, also, what about side yard beekeeping and front yard beekeeping? You're only talking about backyard beekeeping, and that's all that I have to say.
Thank you.
Mimi Newton, 139 Mono Avenue, and chair of the Fairfax Open Space Committee. Welcome, Garrett. I wanted to say thanks to Ryan, but I guess I'll catch up with him later. And Judy, it has been just such a pleasure working with you over the past 6 years that I've been involved in the town, and you've just been incredibly competent, and cheerful and awesome. So thanks. I wish you just all the best. I wanted to tell people we're having a broom pull at Jolly Hill behind where the old Good Earth location is. It's part of a Gift of Love event that Marin area churches participate in every year. This is their 6th one. And we'll be out there Saturday from 9:30 to 12. And people should bring work gloves and sturdy shoes and come join us. And I also wanted to ask the council about the decision-making on the Berg litigation and whether or not you sought input from members of the public or committees of the town that might have had an interest in what was going on before you made your decisions. And maybe we can talk about having that kind of dialogue in the future. I understand you guys made a decision, but I think the Open Space Committee certainly would have wanted to voice our 2 cents as well, since we put a lot more than 2 cents into that litigation. And I also wanted to thank Katie and Hal for all the help that they've provided the Open Space Committee in the past, and I hope they'll continue to be providing for us in the future. Thanks, guys.
Barbara Kohler, 14 Ace Court. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry Ryan's not here. I just want to personally thank him for his service to the town on the council, and prior to that on the Planning Commission and Open Space. So we're really going to miss him and hope that even though he's outside town limits, he will still be able to contribute as he's always done. I also want to thank Judy. She's just done an amazing job for our town, and we're so lucky to have her, and looking forward to Garrett. But anyway, Judy, you've just been great. Appreciate everything. Thank you.
My name's Steve Franks. I live at 19 Willow Avenue again. Jim, I am once again asking about the status of Good Earth's final permit. I am asking the council if anybody believes a 60-foot semi be allowed in a parking lot at 5 a.m. with no restrictions on backup beepers. This issue needs to be addressed before a final permit is given. I have for 1 year this month tried to let Good Earth understand they need to follow the promises/permit that they were granted, and with little success. I am still left to wonder who is responsible to enforce their final permit, and I would like an answer. Thank you.
Can we provide any sort of response in light of, can we?
With regards to the status of the application, we did receive an application on Monday. We're processing that application. We have 30 days to deem it complete. Once we deem it complete, we have 6 months to process that permit, and we will be processing it as soon as possible. And as we've discussed previously when you visited on open mic, as part of reviewing the amendments to their conditions of approval, the things that were not quite built as planned, we will be revisiting the conditions of approval with regards to the truck delivery in the morning. And we hope to see you at those public hearings so you can voice your concerns about not only what you have been stating is going beyond their rights, but also what I believe is your concern about the right of a 60-footer between 5 and 6 and 2 40-footers between 6 and 7, which is their right with the backup beeps. So we will be visiting that as soon as we can get them on the docket for the Planning Commission.
Thank you, Jim.
And with regards, one final thing with regards to their temporary certificate of occupancy, now that we have that application in hand, we will be dealing with the disposition of that temporary certificate of occupancy. And likewise, we are doing due diligence with regards to trying to find a way to deal with the trucks in the meantime, even before the Planning Commission meeting. So we are doing what we can, and we're exploring some options.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yep, that's it. Thank you.
Hello, my name is David Hernandez, and I'm a resident of Fairfax for over 35 years. I've lived here since 1965, and I'd like to address the leaf blower issue. And I lost my arm about 10 years ago in a bad motorcycle accident, and now I do everything left-handed. And I was just wondering, if we ban leaf blowers, is somebody going to come up to my house and sweep the patios and the 50-yard long driveway that I live up? It makes no sense to me, and I'd really like to not see that go through. Also, the downtown mall seems absolutely ludicrous to me.
Mr. Mayor, may I address a couple of clarification points?
Certainly.
The leaf blower issue, per the resolution adopted last month by the council, will be going before the Planning Commission in March, which is the third Thursday of March. I can't remember the date off the top of my head. And it will be the first discussion period of it. I don't think we're going to get to the finish line in one discussion period. But you should avail yourself to that meeting and come make your case, because the Planning Commission will be starting to weigh into all the various nuances of the issue and the detailed direction by the resolution that was adopted. And then finally, again, just to reiterate, in terms of the flyer that was erroneous on its face, it was not from us, and it was erroneous in the sense of what was in it. It's not a done deal. It's not being implemented. But stay tuned for that fund, because as the town center element prescribes, the town in the near future, probably in the beginning of 2014, will be holding workshops to develop a town center plan. And one little piece of that will be the strengthening the connection to Sir Francis Drake on the alternative alignment, the temporary or possibly the permanent pedestrianization of that section of Bolinas, but it's not a done deal. It is not being implemented, but stay tuned. There'll be some fun on that too in the future.
Good, thank you very much.
And that Planning Commission meeting is the 21st of March, is that
Thank you, Mayor.
third Thursday?
Yvette Wakefield, 51 Berry Trail. I would like to ask that you arrange for payphones to be put back in Fairfax. And I know you addressed this issue a couple of years ago. I want you to address it again because I think it's really uncivilized what AT&T is doing by removing all the payphones. They are forcing people to use cell phones, and that's wrong. I can never go to a payphone. When I moved and AT&T didn't connect my telephone for almost a week, I had to go down to the library and ask them to use their phone when I had to make phone calls. Not a payphone, but their telephone. So we're going backwards, and AT&T is acting like PG&E and trying to force the public to accept their view of how they want things to be, and it's wrong. And I think that we need to fight back on both those levels. Oh, good. Glad to hear that.
Hello, Town Council. Michael McIntosh. First thing I'd like to reiterate, as everybody else has said, I do feel we're losing probably the greatest continuity and asset that our town has had for a long time, Judy Anderson. I'm sure it'll be a very difficult seat to fill. I've always seen Judy Anderson as a very equal person that has received my requests and everybody else's requests and always come to the table. She's been a person that I personally can say could sit down with me at any time, make an agreement, even like for the pipe when we've typed things out. And I know without a doubt she would honor that agreement. And this is the type of integrity that we need for people that we deal with in all capacity. So I'm very sorry to see her leave. The other thing I'd like to request is my repetitive request every meeting. For the closed session, and I'd spoken to Jim earlier about this, one, I appreciate the town is not going forward as plaintiff on a Berg matter. I feel that's very wrong in the town. I understand there's vested interest, but even still, I applaud your decision. On the other two closed matters before the council, I would like to ask what those matters were to be disclosed to the public. And the reason I make that request is because I believe I heard you earlier state that direction was given to staff, which then in turn allows it to be disclosed to the public. So you'd please share that with the public. I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
I don't know that that is legally the...
That is false. I mean, the purpose of those sessions is to give direction to staff and council, and you need not disclose that.
It's the very subject that you wrote a memo on some months ago?
A letter, yes.
Yes, so you wrote a letter on this very issue and you at town expense and you gave it to Mr. McIntosh?
Yes.
Okay, so you fully explained the town's position on the Brown Act?
On the
On this
question
issue.
that he asked the other night. I mean,
Yes,
this may
thank
be a
you.
different question.
So there you go, Michael. We gave you a memorandum prepared at town expense answering the very question that you asked, and you've now received our legal opinion.
Yeah, I mean, closed session matters are, you know, it's attorney-client privilege, and it's kind of like a game of cards. You don't expect one side to show their cards to the public, just to put it in layman's terms or whatever. Are there any more comments from the public? Okay, then I'd like to close the open time for public expression. And the next thing on the agenda before the interviews and appointments, then I guess would be this video presentation. Do you want to do that, Larry?
Yeah. I don't want to say much. This is, there's a resolution on our agenda to go on record opposing the approval of the Keystone XL pipeline. That is going to be considered actually by the State Department. And we are at a crossroads. We are at a tipping point as a country and as a society of whether we're going to take climate change seriously and do what we need to do to, I guess, create generational equity so that what we leave to our kids and our grandkids is as good as or better than what we've experienced. And the Keystone XL has been called the fuse to the biggest carbon bomb on the planet. James Hansen, who is the NASA scientist who really disclosed the findings, scientific findings validating global warming, said that if this project is approved, it's game over for global warming. We're going to be on defense the rest of the way. And that's got some incredibly difficult and arduous consequences. So this is an 18-minute film. It was done, it's done by a gentleman by the name of Garth Lenz, who is a photographer and a scientist in Canada. And I think it's a very compelling and concise explanation of what this project is all about, not only the big picture, but what's it going to do on the ground and what it's already doing on the ground in Canada. So without further ado, I would ask Mr. Brown if he could push the button.
Hi, everyone. The world's largest and most devastating environmental industrial project is situated in the heart of the largest and most intact forest in the world, Canada's boreal forest. It stretches right across northern Canada. In Labrador, it's home to the largest remaining wild caribou herd in the world, the George River caribou herd, numbering approximately 400,000 animals. Unfortunately, when I was there, I couldn't find one of them. But you have the antlers as proof. All across the boreal, we're blessed with this incredible abundance of wetlands. Wetlands globally are one of the most endangered ecosystems. They're absolutely critical ecosystems. They clean air, they clean water, they sequester large amounts of greenhouse gases, and they're home to a huge diversity of species. In the boreal, they are also the home where almost 50% of the 800 bird species found in North America migrate north to breed and raise their young. In Ontario, the boreal marches down south to the north shore of Lake Superior. And these incredibly beautiful boreal forests were the inspiration for some of the most famous art in Canadian history. The Group of Seven were very inspired by this landscape. And so the boreal is not just a really key part of our natural heritage, but also an important part of our cultural heritage. In Manitoba, this is an image from the east side of Lake Winnipeg, and this is the home of the newly designated UNESCO Cultural Heritage Site. In Saskatchewan, as across all of the boreal, home to some of our most famous rivers, an incredible network of rivers and lakes that every school-age child learns about, the Peace, the Athabasca, the Churchill here, the Mackenzie. And these networks were the historical routes for the Voyageur and the Coureur de Bois, the first non-Aboriginal explorers of northern Canada that, taking from the First Nations people, used canoes and paddled to explore for a trade route, a northwest passage for the fur trade. In the north, the boreal is bordered by the tundra. And just below that, in Yukon, we have this incredible valley, the Tombstone Valley. And the Tombstone Valley is home to the porcupine caribou herd. Now, you've probably heard about the porcupine caribou herd in the context of its breeding ground in Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. Well, the wintering ground is also critical, and it also is not protected and could be potentially exploited for gas and mineral rights. The western border of the boreal in British Columbia is marked by the Coast Mountains. And on the other side of those mountains is the greatest remaining temperate rainforest in the world, the Great Bear Rainforest. And we'll discuss that in a few minutes in a bit more detail. All across the boreal, it's home for a huge, incredible range of indigenous peoples and a rich and varied culture. And I think that one of the reasons why so many of these groups have retained a link to the past, know their native languages, the songs, the dances, the traditions, I think part of that reason is because of the remoteness, the span, and the wilderness of this almost 95% intact ecosystem. And I think particularly now, as we see ourselves in a time of environmental crisis, we can learn so much from these people who have lived so sustainably in this ecosystem for over 10,000 years. In the heart of this ecosystem is the very antithesis of all of these values that we've been talking about. And I think these are some of the core values that make us proud to be Canadians. This is the Alberta tar sands, the largest oil reserves on the planet outside of Saudi Arabia. Trapped underneath the boreal forests and wetlands of northern Alberta are these vast reserves of this sticky, tar-like bitumen. And the mining and the exploitation of that is creating devastation on a scale that the planet has never seen before. I want to try to convey some sort of a sense of the size of this. If you look at that truck there, It is the largest truck of its kind on the planet. It's a 400-ton capacity dump truck, and its dimensions are 45 feet long by 35 feet wide and 25 feet high. If I stand beside that truck, my head comes to around the bottom of the yellow part of that hubcap. Within the dimensions of that truck, you could build a 3,000 square foot, 2-story home quite easily. I did the math. So instead of thinking of that as a truck, think of that as a 3,000 square foot home. That's not a bad sized home. And line those trucks/homes back and forth across there from the bottom all the way to the top. And then think of how large that very small section of one mine is. Now you can apply that same kind of thinking here as well. Now here you see, of course, as you go further on, these trucks become like a pixel. Again, imagine those all back and forth there. How large is that one portion of a mine? That would be a huge, vast metropolitan area, probably much larger than the city of Victoria. And this is just one of a number of mines. 10 mines so far right now. This is one section of one mining complex, and there are about another 40 or 50 in the approval process. No tar sands mine has actually ever been denied approval, so it is essentially a rubber stamp. The other method of extraction is what's called the in situ, and here massive amounts of water are superheated and pumped through the ground through this vast networks of pipelines, seismic lines, drill pads, compressor stations. And even though this looks maybe not quite as repugnant as the mines, it's even more damaging in some ways. It impacts and fragments a larger part of the wilderness, where there's 90% reduction of key species like woodland caribou and grizzly bears, and it consumes even more energy, more water, and produces at least as much greenhouse gas. So these in situ developments are at least as ecologically damaging as the mines. The oil produced from either method produces more greenhouse gas emissions than any other oil. This is one of the reasons why it's called the world's dirtiest oil. It's also one of the reasons why it is the largest and fastest growing single source of carbon in Canada. And it is also a reason why Canada is now number 3 in terms of producing carbon per person. The tailings ponds are the largest toxic impoundments on the planet. Oil sands, or rather I should say tar sands. Oil sands is a PR-created term so that the oil companies wouldn't be trying to promote something that sounds like a sticky tar-like substance that's the world's dirtiest oil. So they decided to call it oil sands. The tar sands consume more water than any other oil process. 3 to 5 barrels of water are taken, polluted, and then returned into tailings ponds, the largest toxic impoundments in the planet. Syncrude, just one of the licensees in just one of their tailings ponds, dumps 250,000 tons of this toxic gunk every single day. That's creating the largest toxic impoundments in the history of the planet. So far, this is enough toxin to cover the face of Lake Erie a foot deep. And the tailings ponds range in size up to 9,000 acres. That's 2/3 the size of the entire island of Manhattan. That's like from Wall Street at the southern edge of Manhattan up to maybe 120th Street. So this is one of the larger tailings ponds. This might be what, I don't know, half the size of Manhattan? And you can see in the context, it's just a relatively small section of one of 10 mining complexes and another 40 to 50 on stream to be approved soon. And of course, these tailings ponds, well, you can't see many ponds from outer space, and you can see these, so maybe we should stop calling them ponds. These massive toxic wastelands are built unlined and on the banks of the Athabasca River. And the Athabasca River drains downstream to a range of Aboriginal communities. In Fort Chipewyan, the 800 people there are finding toxins in the food chain. This has been scientifically proven. The tar sands toxins are in the food chain, and this is causing cancer rates up to 10 times what they are in the rest of Canada. In spite of that, people have to eat this food in order to survive. The incredibly high price of flying food into these remote northern Aboriginal communities and the high rate of unemployment makes this an absolute necessity for survival. And not that many years ago, I was lent a boat by a First Nations man. And he said, when you go out on the river, do not under any circumstances eat the fish. It's carcinogenic. And yet on the front porch of that man's cabin, I saw 4 fish. He had to feed his family to survive. And as a parent, I just can't imagine what that does to your soul. And that's what we're doing. The boreal forest is also perhaps our best defense against global warming and climate change. The boreal forest sequesters more carbon than any other terrestrial ecosystem. And this is absolutely key. So what we're doing is we're taking the most concentrated greenhouse gas sink. Twice as much greenhouse gases are sequestered in the boreal per acre than the tropical rainforests. And what we're doing is we're destroying this carbon sink, turning it into a carbon bomb. And we're replacing that with the largest industrial project in the history of the world, which is producing the most high-carbon, greenhouse gas-emitting oil in the world. And we're doing this on the second largest oil reserves in the planet. And this is one of the reasons why Canada, originally a climate change hero, we were one of the first signatories of the Kyoto Accord. Now we're the country that has full-time lobbyists in the European Union and Washington, D.C., threatening trade wars when these countries talk about wanting to bring in positive legislation to limit the import of high-carbon fuels, of greenhouse gas emissions, anything like this. At international conferences, whether they're in Copenhagen or Cancun, international conferences on climate change, we're the country that gets the dinosaur award every single day as being the biggest obstacle to progress on this issue. Just 70 miles downstream is the world's largest freshwater delta, the Peace Athabasca Delta, the only one at the juncture of all 4 migratory flyways. This is a globally significant wetland, perhaps the greatest on the planet, incredible habitat for half the bird species you find in North America migrating here, and also the last refuge for the largest herd of wild bison, and also, of course, critical habitat for a whole range of other species. But it, too, is being threatened by the massive amount of water being drawn from the Athabasca, which feeds these wetlands, and also the incredible toxic burden of the largest toxic unlined impoundments on the planet, which are leaching into the food chain for all the species downstream. So as bad as all that is, things are going to get much worse, much, much worse. This is the infrastructure as we see it about now. This is what's planned for 2015. And you can see here the Keystone Pipeline, which would take tar sands raw down to the Gulf Coast, punching a pipeline through the agricultural heart of North America, of the United States, and securing the contract with the dirtiest fuel in the world by consumption of the United States, and promoting a huge disincentive to a sustainable clean energy future for America. Here you see the route down the Mackenzie Valley. This would put a pipeline to take natural gas from the Beaufort Sea through the heart of the 3rd largest watershed basin in the world, and the only one which is 95% intact. And building a pipeline with an industrial highway would change forever this incredible wilderness, which is a rarity on the planet today. So the Great Bear Rainforest is just over the hill there. Within a few miles, we go from these dry boreal forests of 100-year-old trees, maybe 10 inches across, and soon we're in the coastal temperate rainforest, rain-drenched, 100,000-year-old trees, 20 feet across, a completely different ecosystem. And the Great Bear Rainforest is generally considered to be the largest coastal temperate rainforest ecosystem in the world. Some of the greatest densities of some of the most iconic and threatened species on the planet. And yet there's a proposal, of course, to build a pipeline to take huge tankers, 10 times the size of the Exxon Valdez, through some of the most difficult to navigate waters in the world, where only just a few years ago a BC ferry ran aground. When one of these tar sands tankers, carrying the dirtiest oil 10 times as much as the Exxon Valdez, eventually hits a rock and goes down, we're going to have one of the worst ecological disasters this planet has ever seen. And here we have the plan out to 2030. What they're proposing is an almost 4-time increase in production, and that would industrialize an area the size of Florida. In doing so, we'll be removing a large part of our greatest carbon sink and replacing it with the most high greenhouse gas emission oil in the future. The world does not need any more tar mines. The world does not need any more pipelines to wed our addiction to fossil fuels. And the world certainly does not need the largest toxic impoundments to grow and multiply and further threaten the downstream communities. And let's face it, we all live downstream in an era of global warming and climate change. What we need is we all need to act to ensure that Canada respects the massive amounts of fresh water that we hold in this country. We need to ensure that these wetlands and forests that are our best and greatest and most critical defense against global warming are protected, and we are not releasing that carbon bomb into the atmosphere. And we need to all gather together and say no to the tar sands. And we can do that. There is a huge network all over the world fighting to stop this project. And I quite simply think that this is not something that should be decided just in Canada. Everyone in this room, everyone across Canada, everyone listening to this presentation has a role to play, and I think a responsibility. Because what we do here is going to change our history. It's going to color our possibility to survive and for our children to survive and have a rich future. We have an incredible gift in the Boreal, an incredible opportunity to preserve our best defense against global warming, but we could let that slip away. The tar sands could threaten not just a large section of the Boreal, it compromises the life and the health of some of our most underprivileged and vulnerable people, the Aboriginal communities that have so much to teach us. It could destroy the Athabasca Delta, the largest and possibly greatest freshwater delta in the planet. It could destroy the Great Bear Rainforest, the largest temperate rainforest in the world. And it could have huge impacts on the future of the agricultural heartland of North America. I hope that you will all, if you've been moved by this presentation, join with the growing international community to get Canada to step up to its responsibilities, to convince Canada to going back to be a climate change champion instead of a climate change villain, and to say no to the tar sands and yes to a clean energy future for all. Thank you so much.
People are just now becoming aware of how important this is. So, have you got?
No, I was just going to say, President Obama is going to be making a decision probably in the next 6 months. I guess ostensibly. I don't really know who's going to be making the decision. That's the scary part. So it's on our plate, and that pipeline will really give this development the economic viability to grow it and to keep it going. If the price of oil goes too low, they stop production. But when you expedite the project by building a cheap transportation network, you're actually helping it along. In a way, you're subsidizing this project, what you see, what you saw. And there's going to be a gathering, I think, on February 17th. And if a lot of us don't show up, the president's going to decide, maybe we don't care. Maybe nobody's looking. So, the point of the presentation is to get the information out into the community. This community that's here tonight, maybe the community that's watching it at home tonight, and just to give the issue a platform. And hopefully, if we pass the resolution tonight, it's certainly going to be sent to President Obama and Secretary of State Kerry and the other responsible officials who are going to make this decision. And we need to let them know that we're watching and we're going to hold them responsible.
Thank you. Any comment from?
Interested in hearing from the public, but I have no words. So,
Okay.
it's too much
Is-
greed.
Yeah. Is there members of the public who would like to comment on this?
It's all of us. We all get in our cars, we drive, we take our trips and fly wherever we're going to go. We're all consumers. It's like we are the problem. Bottom line is, what are we leaving for the future, and do we care? Because if we don't do something, my feeling is we're toast. Our kids are toast, and just about everything that lives and breathes is toast. And it's kind of hard to look at and witness, and it can drive you nuts. But bottom line is, what are we leaving? Are we consumers? Or are we conservers? We're consumers. And we either turn and change and leave something. And where are we going to start? Or are we just going to say, what was that word? Profanity, yes. Are we just going to say profanity, profanity, profanity? I just want to go traveling. I'm going to go to Cancun. I'm going to go to Hawaii. Maybe I'll go to Egypt. Or maybe I'll go to Australia. Or what the heck? Why don't we just stay home? I mean, even going to Washington for the protest at the mall, it's like I look at that and go, no, we need to do it here. We need to do it where we live. We need to live where we live. That's our community. That's our life. The rest of it's just consuming hungry ghosts.
Mimi Newton, 139 Mono. Sierra, the rally is in San Francisco at the State Department. And if you want information about it, go to the Green Party of Marin's website at maringreens.org. And I totally support the council taking a stand on this issue.
Barbara Kohler, 14 Ace Court. Having spent years cleaning up hazardous waste sites, the thought of probably the largest hazardous waste site we've seen is truly frightening to me. I totally support the resolution, and I understand the president was able to get, I think it was the governor of Nebraska was standing in the way because of the route, and now the route's been changed. So I think it's going to have an easier way through. So I support the resolution and appreciate the mayor and Councilman Bragman bringing this to our attention. Thank you.
Okay, first of all, I've known about this for a long time, and yeah, it's an issue. I didn't know it was coming this soon, though. Either way, probably all the mess that these people are leaving behind are going to be left to my generation anyway, which already kind of is on board with the whole conserving energy and stuff. It's just moving way too slowly right now. So stopping that would probably be a huge step towards conservative energy and not waste fuel or fossil fuels, and just stop using it altogether, because this stuff's kind of bad. I don't know what else to say. Just, yeah. Fine.
Thank you.
My name is Janet Ferriolo. I live at 7 Forest Terrace, and I just want to say thank you for bringing this film to our attention, and I fully support your resolution. Thanks.
If there's no more public comment, yes, I see another.
Hello, I'm Sally Kavanaugh, and I've come here to support the mayor and Councillor Bragman, and I also look forward to a future resolution against fracking in the county of Marin and California as a whole, because I think that that's almost as threatening if you look at the film Gaslands as what we've just seen. It's just something with a different technique, but the emissions are there, and there are no super fun cleanups after fracking. Thank you.
Well, seeing no further public input, is there another comment? No. Okay. So then we close the comment for this item, and we present the motion as part of this, or is this?
Sure.
Yeah.
I would move approval of resolution
13-5.
13-5. A resolution of the Town of Fairfax in opposition to the construction of the proposed Keystone XL tar sands pipeline.
All right, so I hear a motion. So we have a motion on the floor, and it's second by Hartwell. So we have a motion, Bragman, and a second, Hartwell, for adoption of resolution number 13-5, resolution of the Town Council of Fairfax in opposition to the construction of the proposed Keystone XL tar sands pipeline. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. I think it's unanimous.
That sounds like it. Very good.
4-0.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Terrific. Yeah, it's one of many steps that needs to happen, is passing resolutions like this. Yes. Okay, next we have interviews and appointments. We have an interview and appointment of candidates to serve on the Open Space Committee for a full 4-year term. And we had a couple of applications, and does anybody? Yeah. Judy?
Hi, yeah, there were 2 applicants, and we have 2 openings for 2 full-year terms. I believe Nancy Rogers is here. No? Yeah. I don't know Mr. Rogers Martin. Is he a present too? I don't believe so.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, certainly the applicant that's here, if you'd like to come forward and say. Yeah, so if you approach the podium and just tell us, in words, why you'd like to be on the Open Space Committee.
Now it's on, okay. So I've lived in Fairfax for a little over 25 years now, raised 3 kids. The kids are, well, for the most part, grown and out of the house. But I've been active in the schools, really, for most of that time, since preschool all the way through Drake, and I just ended a 2-year term on the Drake Fund Board at the end of this past year, and I'm looking for a new volunteer activity, and I'm an avid user of the open space, runner, hiker, biker, whatever. So I thought this would be a great way to sort of merge my interests.
Well, we're certainly glad you applied. I can see that you bring a myriad number of skills to the table here, and I think that with the Open Space Committee has a wide range of skills there, and I hope you'd be very happy doing it.
Well, if
are there questions from?
If the extraordinary talents that you brought to aggravating for the paving of your Bell Avenue Street after a mere 35 years.
Yeah, it was time. It was due.
But if your success in pressing us to doing that, working with Mimi and others, you're going to be a remarkable addition to a very remarkable committee. So I would move Nancy's nomination and ask for it to be unanimous.
Thanks.
We need a public comment.
Yeah. No, I think we should open. Is there any public comment on this matter? Ooh.
Mimi Newton, Fairfax Open Space Committee Chair. I just want to say that Nancy's been coming to our meetings and participating in, activities outside the meetings, like walking neighborhoods and handing out flyers, and has been so fabulous, even, without being formally part of the committee. And we're just really excited. She brings all sorts of fabulous fundraising skills to our committee right when we need them to start raising money to buy the trail up at the end of Willow. And so we're really, really excited and happy to have her here. Thanks.
Barbara Kohler, Open Space Committee. I'd just like to say, I guess, second everything Mimi says. Nancy brings a tremendous amount of energy and skills at a really important time for the Open Space Committee, so I more than support her joining our group. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other comments from the public. Any other comments from the council?
I'm going to second the motion.
Yeah. Are we
All right.
approving both of them, or are we just approving
No,
Nancy
I
at this
think
time?
just
We'll wait.
the one, yeah.
All right.
Okay, so we have a motion, Weinsoff, and a second Bragman, right? Okay, so all those in favor? Aye. Aye, it's unanimous, so congratulations. And thank you very much. That's a good thing. Next, we have council reports and comments. These are brief announcements and reports on council member assignments, committees, and activities, including reports from meetings attended at town expense. And we could start from the right or the left.
Yeah.
You want to go first, David?
Two that I want to bring to the council community's attention. First of all, I was appointed to the League of California Cities Environmental Quality Committee, and I went up there, and it was about 4 or 5 hours of meetings, but we received a disquieting presentation, and I'm beginning to see that finally things are beginning to rattle on this. The major concern is a proposal by Senator Rubio moving forward to, for lack of a better word, gut CEQA. And I know that the Marin Conservation League, Nona Dennis in particular, who will be addressing us at the next MCCMC meeting, also in the recent MCL newsletter, and in a very thoughtful piece, Marin Voice in the IJ, is beginning to raise the community's attention to this. As folks know who follow environmental stuff in California, CEQA was signed in the early 70s by Governor Reagan and has been, much like its counterpart at the federal level, a bulwark and an important tool against rampant development without full and complete attention, mostly by the public. But it has raised the ire of anybody who's ever tried to do a project and ram it through. In fact, you could say that the statute is particularly important for the project that it is killed that we've never seen because it merely sits there. And this has galled folks upwards now of 40 years. And so there is having chipped away at it over many, many years, there is now a full frontal assault on this law. And it was surprising to me, or it shouldn't have been, but it was surprising to me to see the, I want to say a little bit of the acquiescence of some of our more conservative colleagues from other parts of the state. And so the alarm bells on this very important law cannot be sounded too loudly. And as we move forward during this year, I would ask citizens, the council, to be mindful of the work that our colleagues in Sacramento are doing, potentially to dismantle this exceedingly critical environmental statute. The other meeting was the Flood Zone 9. John and I attended it. I, as the representative, John, I asked to attend. I think the supervisor, really, I think, spelled out quite effectively the challenges that we're facing and the role that the county is playing in moving the various projects forward to ensure that storms such as the one we suffered 2005, 2006 on New Year's Eve is not repeated. Great challenges ahead. We have moved well past the study phase, and now we're entering that implementation where the rubber hits the road. And so as we have our meetings quarterly now, I'll be reporting on a regular basis of where we are in spending the very generous fee dollars that we received, as well as accompanying federal and state tax dollars. Thank you.
Okay, at our last meeting, we continued an item regarding the trees at the Good Earth, and I just wanted to give a quick update on that. If you've noticed, the trees got planted. I actually went and did a site visit to visit some of those trees already growing in our community and found them to be lovely trees. They've been planted, this section is done, it's sort of a done deal. So I had that was sort of one of the meeting things that I did. And then I also had a couple of meetings dealing with the zero waste issue, where working with Sustainable Fairfax as well as with Marin Sanitary Service, who I believe will be coming to our next meeting. We are a little past a year on our new contract with them, and they have some reporting from that contract that they'll be coming and doing at our next meeting. So, and I also have the Community Development Block Grant meeting coming up, which is always a fun one.
Larry?
Attended the Zero Waste Committee meeting with Pam, and actually we'll be attending Marin Energy Authority tomorrow night. And this is kind of ties into the presentation because they're considering a rate hike because it's getting more expensive to procure sustainable clean energy. And one of the reasons it's getting more expensive to get clean energy is because of the competition of gas and cheap oil procured by means like this. So it not only has the direct impact on the environment, but it has kind of a ripple effect as to the financial viability of clean energy. And so when you see arguments about all the jobs that are going to be created by this pipeline, just think about all the jobs that could be created in clean energy for the same money if it was invested in clean energy. And you'll see that, you know, clean energy would be just as viable if it had the support that these type of programs, these dirty energy programs, are getting, unfortunately. So we are going to be considering a rate increase at Marin Energy Authority tomorrow night.
Okay, and I've got a list of 12 meetings here, which I won't bore you with all of. Yeah, some of them. Yeah, Flood Zone 9, of course, is, you know, talked about by David. Let me see. In terms of, a lot of them have to do with safe routes to schools and different traffic concerns, flood concerns, finance committee, things like that. An interesting thing I went to on Monday, which was, it's actually over in the city of Richmond. They have very different sets of problems than we do here, but they still have transportation as a major problem in their community. And they've got some interesting solutions that they've been doing in terms of car sharing, and people can rent an electric vehicle for $3 an hour, and where their alternative to get to the grocery store is a $20 cab ride. And so this totally makes sense in these low-income communities there, and not all the programs that they've designed there would apply here, but some of them certainly could be adapted here in some of the potential things down the road that we've got. And in terms of transportation, which is a big contributor, I mean, it's a big burner of oil, for instance. Let me see, also TAM meeting, sitting in on this, Katie Rice talked about that interchange down there. And there's been a lot of community input on that. It's been very interesting too. I'll leave it at that. So right now we are approaching 9 o'clock. We could either do consent, or we have a meeting within a meeting to do tonight.
We have a Drake High School student here. We've got to get her home to do her homework.
John, you could do the 9 o'clock meeting at any time after 9 o'clock. So you could do it at the end of this agenda
Okay,
if you want.
we could do that at the end.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that'll be fine. Well, moving on to the consent calendar, right then?
Move approval.
Yeah. Is there any discussion on any of the items on consent? Anything from the public?
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion, Weinsoff, a second, Hartwell. All those in favor of approving the consent calendar?
Aye.
Aye. So that's unanimous. And so then we move on to the regular agenda, item number 13, which is discuss and consideration of a request from a citizen for the town council to consider the adoption of a light pollution ordinance. And David, I think you're the sponsor or planning.
Well, Sophia Leahy from Willow.
She's done the hard work,
She's
but your
the
name.
laboring oar has been done
Okay.
by Sophia. But I'll turn it over to our planning director, Jim Moore.
Okay, thank you, Jim.
Thank you. I'll try to be brief. So, as you heard from Sophia when she spoke to you all at the open mic previously, she is championing this cause. And this is on the agenda tonight for you to discuss whether you want to move forward with entertaining an ordinance regulating so-called light pollution. We've sort of outlined here the approach that the council could take. One is to direct staff to prepare an ordinance for a future meeting for you all to consider if it's going to be somewhere in the code that's not in the zoning ordinance. If you're thinking about it being in the zoning ordinance, then by town code it would go through the planning commission and it would be handed up to them via resolution, not unlike the leaf blower. And you could thirdly opt to continue the matter off calendar for future discussion and a meeting date to be determined. And lastly, you could decline the request for preparation and consideration. As I mentioned, Sophia was here previously, the letter's attached. As David mentioned, or I think you may have mentioned, we met with Sophia and entertained a discussion. We also attached to your report tonight, which is in the public packet online for those of you at home watching or at a later date watching. And just to reiterate a couple of points in your report, while the town does not have an ordinance regulating outdoor lighting at this point in time, it is within the town's purview or the planning commission's purview, and you all on any appeals, to create conditions of approval in any application for commercial use or buildings or residential buildings or use. You can, in those conditions, stipulate certain requirements as far as light. So even though the town doesn't have a light ordinance, we do have a mechanism with which to regulate light in town. As is mentioned in your packet, there are communities in California and across America that are adopting ordinances that are like the ones attached in your packet tonight. For the most part, from what staff has researched on a cursory level, it's a lot of larger towns adopting these. And as I mentioned, this could be placed in different sections of the town code. We don't really have a strong recommendation. Staff is recommending that you consider placing it in the health and safety section of the code, which is not in the zoning ordinance section. But we stand ready for your direction after you hear from Sophia and the public and deliberate. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Jim. Would you like to add something to this, Sophia? Or? Do you have something to add to what Jim has spoken about, or?
I don't really have anything to add, though, unless you want to ask me questions.
Just speak to the microphone.
Okay.
And then,
I don't really have anything to add. That was pretty good, actually, but unless you want to ask me questions about it or whatever.
He is very good.
Huh?
He's very good.
Yes.
I thought when we met with Linda Neal, I thought that she had some interesting thoughts that I think you echo accurately in the memorandum, which is this flexibility that we could have under health and safety as opposed to the zoning ordinance. So I was excited to see your pressing us in that direction. I think that is sort of the way to go. And also, I recall your thoughts when we were discussing it with Linda Neal about how we're a very small town, And we can roll these requirements over time. It's not as if we're going to say to people, hey, get those light bulbs out of there by Thursday. We can do this over time and make it sort of the Fairfax way of inculcating people. Although I think we all agree, and I know that your generation has been adopting this. How long did it take us all to get rid of those stupid plastic bags and start going to more the ones that we use over and over and over again. So I think Fairfax might just grab onto whatever it is that planning staff feels is best when should you bring it back to us. I think more rapidly than even you and I could even imagine. I think that's just the kind of town we're in. So I think that sort of, those were some of the takeaways that I had from my conversation with you and staff a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, so going into that again, to slowly create a more sustainable environment to decrease light pollution, like future construction projects or future home renovations would probably be the best way to start with that kind of thing. Like if you're going to replace the lights on your porch, say, it would still have to follow the certain regulations that you might put in place, and that would go for all future light changes. I don't know how to really word that. And then with like big construction projects, I'm not sure how that would go because they use all these big giant LED lights that are really annoying to me. But I think that probably just shutting them off by a certain time would be okay, and as long as they get rid of it at one point, if it's like a temporary thing, I think that would be fine. But if it's like a thing that's always going to be there, it needs to fall to those regulations too, and it would apply to both residential and companies and et cetera. Like it applies to everyone. And putting it into a zoning thing just sounds really stupid to me. Because when I looked at that map of the zoning, there's like 25 different zones or something. I'm like, okay, so what's the point of putting it in one of them if there's already so many of them? So putting it in the health code would probably be a lot better doing it that way than that. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming. I know this has been an issue that's been a concern of yours for a while, and my sense is if Fairfax we're doing fairly well on it. And it was interesting that the city that the ordinance came from is near a town where my mom lives, and it's outside of Chicago, and one of the issues there is that Chicago has passed one of these ordinances, and there's lots of sort of warehouse factories or warehouse sort of buildings outside of Chicago to provide Chicago with goods, like Target warehouses and Walmart warehouses, and the people that hold onto the goods where they go from production to distribution. And these huge distribution warehouses, we're all told you can no longer point your lights at Chicago because of all the light pollution. And so they, of course, turned their lights around and now point them out into the farmland surrounding, which is where one of my mothers lives. And it's been this, and now all of these communities have started popping up with these. And these are atrocious. I think that Fairfax, we've been careful about making sure we've got hoods on our street lights, and I know that I certainly, when I look into the hills, I was even looking off my porch on Willow the other night, and every now and then there's certainly a fairly offensive porch light, and maybe that's to some degree going to a neighbor and saying, your porch light makes me crazy, is there anything we can do about it? And I know that that's another way that Fairfax often deals with these issues, but I appreciate you bringing it forward, and I think it makes total sense to put it in how we can that makes sense.
Can I just clarify staff's position on this for a moment? I wanted to articulate that our recommendation is if you choose to go forward, we would think it would go in the other section of the code. We're not really vocally indicating here in our report whether you should go forward or not, but let me just chime in a little bit gently on that. This is really a wonderful thing you've done, Sophie, to bring this to our attention. It's a really great cause. There is an impact to the environment. It's a great thing. The question is, can we deal with these issues without going the full 10 yards with the ordinance? And I will promise you this, no matter what they do, you've provided us with a very good model ordinance with the International Dark Sky Association's particulars on this. And I personally will guarantee you, when we're reviewing projects, I'll take that direction under consideration on projects going forward. For example, we do on the Good Earth move, we did ask for a luminescence study where they have to show us exactly what luminescence is coming out of the light system. And you've already succeeded, in a sense, by piquing our understanding of this issue. And regardless of their direction tonight to staff, you have already succeeded in terms of piquing my understanding of how important this is. So you have my guarantee that I will move forward with staff recommendations to try to mitigate trespassing light, which I thought was a great term, and outdoor light pollution. Let me just say, though, there is a reality check here with what you all task us with to do, and that is these ordinances do take time. There is a triage going on with the number of staff that you have in town and the amount of mandatory activities that we have to do, let alone the discretionary activities. Let me just give you one example. Right after you passed the resolution directing us to entertain the leaf blower regulations, which we will be visiting with the Planning Commission in the March meeting, our staffer from Marin Climate and Energy Partnership Committee, which you appointed me to 3 years ago and I'm now chair of, she actually happened to write under contract for St. Helena their leaf blower ordinance. And I've got it, and it was actually going towards the machinery that classifies it at a lower level. But it was a day after that you passed it, and I said, Christine, approximately how much time did you bill St. Helena for the hearings, and how many hearings? And there were 4 hearings. She said it was arduous, and that she billed for about 160 hours of staff time. Well, your fully burdened rate for myself is 160, for the senior planners 125. We did some quick math. If you were going to go the long way through the Planning Commission, you're talking about $20,000 to $25,000 of staff time and a lot of time.
We're just going to put a memo in people's mailboxes.
Yeah, there you go. So I'm just saying there is a fiscal impact.
Is there a short way, I guess, is the next,
well,
is the...
you could direct us to just bring you an ordinance directly back, and this International Dark Sky Association has a pretty interesting model ordinance.
But you, and in my conversations with Linda Neal, what I heard was a fascination with this. And so Sophia and the community, I think, would allow a bit of forbearance. She's only a junior. You know, a little bit of time to, you know, massage this with your expertise rather than just a wholesale adoption of a quality work, but might not be Fairfax. So I would say to you, and I'm tasking you work as the new city manager is looking on, and I say, I think that you should do it within the parameters of the time that the two of you agree you have.
So if I may, I believe in talking to Jim that the thought pattern was within the conditions of approval within different projects, you do have control over that, obviously over people's homes that are existing businesses you wouldn't. But it sounds like is the council direction that you believe that we should put time into exploring and putting together something going to the code?
It's my experience up here that taking a cookie cutter vanilla approach doesn't attach to the people of Fairfax as well as an ordinance written by staff who has been here for years and understands our community now very well, and crafts it consistent with the mores and mores of how we govern ourselves. So I would say I would rather than rush something through, allow staff the time to explore and to craft just the proper ordinance for our review. And while I'm at it, also consistent with staff's recommendation on the health and safety side of it rather than the zoning side.
Okay, but it's an ordinance and preferably get it done before she graduates?
I know you don't know this, Garrett, but it did take 10 years for us to get the general plan. When Lou Tremaine and I started on this, our goal was to get it out from our kindergarten kids graduating high school. So,
so we have some flexibility.
You just a tad. Yes.
Okay, thanks.
And I think also taking ordinances from other places and looking at that, how do we adapt it to make it work here? It's a big time saver. I mean, I was at the same meeting where she said, no, yeah, we just did this. And I said, great, what'd you come up with? You know, because why reinvent the wheel? but certainly let's pay attention to exactly how that wheel turns. And I also want to make a plug for what Pam has suggested, is like, it's also a lot to do with neighbors to neighbors. I mean, I know, well, I've got a neighbor who's got a really bright spotlight that shines 2 blocks away and into my window, but, you know, fortunately.
Trespassing is now.
Yeah, the light is, yeah, right. But, you know, and that's a conversation that I probably should, you know, knock on his door or whatever like that. But, you know, we also try to respect each other a lot. And I'm sure he doesn't realize, you know, I think he's just lighting up his driveway. It could be that he's watching it on TV. Yeah, looking at model ordinances and then coming up with something that works within the scale of what we can afford, as well as what will work.
Correctly, you're sort of doing a hybrid between 1 and 3. You're directing staff to, or perhaps 2 and 3. I put my paper away here. You're directing staff to digest this issue and do its best reasoning to come back with a draft model ordinance at a not time-specific period.
So moved.
And is there any other member of the public would like to speak to this issue?
So Barbara Kohler, I'm on the Planning Commission as well. I would just say in the context of our approvals, particularly for construction work, we are very cognizant of the time that people do construction work and set boundaries to that. So I think typically light should not be a huge issue for construction projects. I believe also that you have very limited staff in the town, so there's only so many people, not very many, to draft an ordinance. But I think for purposes of being a member of the Planning Commission and making sound decisions based on something, it would help in the future to have some kind of an ordinance, so we're not just doing, you know, one at a time, and then these things would get appealed to the town probably more frequently. So I think we can certainly take this into consideration. I mean, we've already had issues, lighting on signs, things like that. We are very sensitive to the quality of our town and preserving that. I think this would help us, but I don't think we need it tomorrow. You know, I think the construction issues are not going to be a problem, and I think the Planning Commission does consider these issues. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Donna Garbisi. I want to thank Sophia for educating me about light pollution, and I do think having an ordinance for the town is an important consideration because we are moving forward with things like streetlight retrofits that we're already spending money on. And if we can do it in a thoughtful, foresightful manner, according to some sort of long-range planning, I think that is something really important to consider. So it seems like a good idea to, yes, have some sort of ordinance in place. For example, I know that the new LED bulbs are indeed more energy efficient, cost-effective, lower carbon emissions, but they're also brighter. So that kind of destroys the whole idea of controlling the light emission if they're not on a yellow wavelength, things like this. So these are the type of things that I'm hoping Sophia's proposition is going to help everybody to kind of start this conversation, because these things are happening now. Thank you.
Thank you. And if there's no other comment from the public, I'd like to close the public comment.
I think we have a motion on the floor.
We do. You moved it, right?
Do you feel clear about what that direction is?
Let me see if I can reiterate it. It is number 1, actually. Direct staff to prepare a draft ordinance for consideration by the town council at a future meeting date to be determined for inclusion in the town code. I think it's actually just 1.
Okay.
Okay.
Second.
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion, Wensoff, a second, Hartwell. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. It sounds unanimous to me. So thank you.
But can I just say one little follow-up thought? There was a great suggestion by our new town manager, Mr. Toy, which is maybe this would be a good project for an intern. What are you doing?
Any Drake students?
That'd be a great project for an intern, Mrs. Leahy. And by the way, can I just say I really admire your parenting skills. You have a wonderful daughter who's really getting involved with her community, and that's really wonderful to see.
So Sophia, we volunteered you to assist in the drafting of the ordinance. Nobody gets off free.
It looks good on college application.
It is great, actually. That's I know my own involvement in getting sucked into the public government process was, wanting things to change in the community. Things like crosswalks, safe routes to school, and just the nuts and bolts of how that happens. And it's a really important and wonderful thing to give to your community in this way. So I can't, yeah. Thank you. So number 14 is request from the Zero Waste Committee and Sustainable Fairfax for funding for the purchase of recycling bins for town buildings. And this is marked Zero Waste Committee, and I don't know which committee member
Actually,
we want
let me
to have.
ask a really quick question of our town attorney. I'm currently doing some consulting work with Sustainable Fairfax. Do I need to sit out on this one, even though it's not actually money going to Sustainable Fairfax? It's money being sort of spent by Sustainable Fairfax on behalf of the town. I am, but not on, by this entity, yes. Okay, good. I'm out.
Well, in terms of presenting this, Pam's our representative on the Zero Waste Committee, as well as Larry, so.
Yeah, well, Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
if you like, due to the timing, there wasn't a staff report, but in essence, it's a request by Sustainable Fairfax to pay for recycling bins.
Okay.
The funding would ultimately come from the general fund, even though you could argue whether it's franchise fees or whatever, but it would come from the general fund. But it is a fairly nominal amount. But if fine with the council, if Chelsea can make her presentation, that'd be great.
Sounds great. Chelsea?
Am I on? Okay, here we go. Thank you. And Garrett, I forgot to welcome you to the town of Fairfax. So welcome earlier. Hello again. This is a request, again, to help us move towards our zero waste 2020 goal. As we all know, Fairfax is a town with an abundant amount of community events and gatherings. And we're very fortunate to utilize our public facilities like the Women's Center, the Pavilion, and also the Town Hall. As we head into spring, there are numerous events going on, and as I mentioned before, we've had phenomenal impacts with diversion rates during events. So what we're proposing is we would love to install recycling systems in these 3 facilities, specifically 2 in the Women's Center, 1 in the Town Hall, and 2 in the Pavilion. And these would be dual stream recycling systems that would be in-house in the public facilities. There are currently none there right now at this point. There are small blue paper recycling bins in the Town Hall I've seen, but there's really nothing in the other 2 facilities. So what we're proposing, you'll see in the document I prepared, or we prepared, would be to use these bins. The descriptions and the specifications are in that report, and we've also specified a project budget, which would total $2,784. So we hope you'd consider this proposal, and again, this would be a very significant impact towards our 2020 zero waste goal. So thank you. If you have any questions, please let me know.
My computer took leave of life tonight. But in my review of your proposal earlier, these bins are from a company called Bush?
Correct.
And how they don't offer any freebies from the Marin Sanitary?
Not for in-house bins. And Renee Goddard, am I allowed to refer to our project coordinator?
You can just tell me, it's okay.
Renee, is nothing I know of as far as MSS freebie bins, but you can come on.
Are we on? Yeah. So I'm Renee Goddard, and nice to see you. So what we're talking about more is sort of a permanent type installation. So it wouldn't be something that kind of gets moved around and tossed over and placed on one side of the room to the other.
Fine.
It would be really nice, professionally installed, easily accessed signage, the whole thing, so that we can use it as both like an education, opportunity, and also as the practical use of really trying to recover these resources before they get trashed.
And the size you feel is appropriate for the?
There are a variety of sizes.
Yes.
I mean, this is all online, and there's so many companies, it's unbelievable. This is the best that I found and that I was putting down as a recommendation. It's right in the range of cost of what the other companies would offer. These were the best I could find with the most opportunity for like different types of signage, changeable signage, that would seem the most durable.
The only reason I ask is because I attend an event and the recycling bins flow over with participation. And so when I was looking at granted, they were photocopies in black and white, it was kind of smushy by the time we got it. But I was wondering and wanted to ask you, are these going to be sufficient for the goal?
Inside our town facilities, we can't really handle anything too much bigger. So it's a matter of just maintaining them. So the people who are hosting the events are going to have to service them during the course of the event, which is what we generally do anyway. So anything bigger might just it would fill the room, frankly. So.
That's all? Thank you.
Yeah, in terms of the size, I mean, there's a big difference between the pavilion and town hall too, so if this is one size fits all, the smaller ones are in town hall and the big ones in the pavilion is. And do we have to take a particular action?
Actually,
I think
actually,
it is
Mr.
approving
Mayor,
this request.
Mr. Mayor, just maybe one item of clarification, just so staff is clear, because we didn't really get a chance to discuss something, is maintaining these and I guess collecting the recycling. My understanding is the special event would maintain them or clear out the bins after they're completed, but what about kind of ongoing, because the bins would remain at the different facilities? Is it staff's responsibility that would have to, if the bins get full, to empty them?
I think that would have to be worked into contracts as people rent the facilities. So if it's, I actually can't say for sure because this hasn't been discussed with someone who's in line with Public Works. But during the course of the event itself, those people would need to service it. And then there would need to be a place where it could be placed, like one of Marin Sanitary's totes outside the pavilion, for instance. But each event is handled differently in terms of who's providing the exterior garbage service or recycling service. So those are details that have not been finally worked out.
Mayor?
Yes, Larry.
I think they're workable.
Hi, Renee.
Hi,
The problem I've seen when I've done events here, I mean, I don't even know if we have a Marin Sanitary recycling
You do.
tote here. So I think what I would foresee happening is that when we rent this room or when we put on an event in this room, that part of that responsibility is that you monitor the recycling center or recycling whatever these things are called, and then you empty them in the Marin Sanitary cart outside. And
right.
We should be good. I mean, it shouldn't really add a lot more because you're going to be emptying garbage bins out that way anyway. So
The one additional piece that you do have, though, is that if you have a permanent station installed, someone has to clean it. Like you have to scrub the outside and you have to make sure that things haven't fallen down in the cracks, and that would be a job, an extra maintenance piece for our custodians or for Public Works or whoever it is that provides that service.
okay, and have you looked into how easy these things are to maintain, or maybe that's something we
As far as I could tell from my research, these are these are good. There are not a lot of nooks and crannies. They're solid. You can take the stuff off and wash it, and they seem like a good way to go. But as I said, there are so many options you can't imagine. This was my best attempt at making a recommendation.
So, I mean, it seems, I mean, I think it's a great idea. I think it's totally overdue. And it just seems like it's not a lot different than when somebody comes in, uses the kitchen, you clean it up. You use, minimum, the maintenance that you do like on a kitchen. You can use spray cleaner,
Absolutely.
You're done. So
I agree, and I think it should be worked into the contract when people rent the town spaces.
Yeah.
Very clearly what needs to be done to maintain and deal with the recycling.
Yeah, no, I think it's practical, it's overdue, and it's come up every time I've helped do an event here. What do we do with recycling? So,
The town hall in San Rafael has recently installed a terrific system that is this company's system as well. Very simple, very clear. People notice it, and people are learning just by walking in the front door of the town hall. So
okay, so maybe we can talk to some of the people over there.
I'll send a picture of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it sounds good.
I mean, I think that working it into the contracts for different rooms, for people using the events, I mean, I know that when I've put events on here and I've gone to try to deal with the garbage and recycling, the bins outside, they're already full from the last event. And this, is another disconnect in that process. So it's a lot more than just buying the containers.
That's a larger conversation, though.
Well,
it is, but it's a conversation that's overdue.
Yeah.
I think.
Sorry. I mean, we may have to get 2 recycling carts and put it out there. I mean, if we're going to be increasing the volume of recycling. But, I mean, these are all things that can be worked out.
And these were things that came up in our marine sanitary meeting the other day. So
Yeah, and Fairfax should be recycling in its public buildings. So, let's do this.
Mm-hmm. Any other comments here? I mean, I think it's a request for funding.
Yeah, if you like, just make a motion authorizing the funding to purchase the bins, and I
Love to
think staff
entertain a
knows
motion.
there's direction. We'll work out a plan to maintain them and make sure it's in the contracts and do what we can to
Yeah, I
offset
think that's an
costs.
important part of it. So moved, yeah, we have 2 motions and 2 seconds, perhaps. How about a motion, Bragman, and a second, Weinsoff? All those in favor? Aye. It's unanimous. So, thank you on that. Number 15, as noted earlier, is being continued, probably till next month. And we also have another matter, which has been noticed. It's not on this printed agenda, but basically,
John, I'd recommend that you adjourn this meeting and then convene this special meeting.
okay, well, in that case, I will entertain a motion to adjourn this particular meeting. Okay, we have a motion, Weinsoff, second Bragman. All those in favor? Aye. And don't go away so fast, because we have another meeting right now. You can go if you want, but what? This will be quick. Even though it's an important matter, I suppose, should I give the announcement of Ryan? I've already given the announcement earlier tonight that Ryan O'Neill wrote a letter of resignation. He's moving outside of the town boundaries and as such needs to resign from his position on the town council. There are a couple of ways that we can go in terms of filling that position. One of them is holding a special election, and I think.
You have a copy of the staff report up there in the agenda for this meeting. I left one in each
Oh,
place.
okay, yeah, we have a second.
So there is
Yeah,
an agenda
okay.
and a staff report there.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so the estimate, well, there's 2 routes that we can go. One is to hold a special election to fill this position, and the other one is to announce that there is a vacancy on the council and have a period of accepting applications, after which we will, I mean, it's the similar situation to what you saw recently in San Rafael. Basically, they asked for applicants. They got a pretty good pool to pick from there. That's open for a specific period of time, and then the council appoints from that pool of applicants. A special election is expensive. It's estimated to be between $43,000 and $54,000 for one special election. So to me, it's kind of a no-brainer. But we need to talk about that and decide as a council. Are there other comments from other councils?
I'm really curious, actually. I think I agree with you that it isn't. We should not have a special election for this. I'm curious. We have in here in this little packet how the process that was used by San Rafael, and I'm kind of curious to people who have more experience. And I don't know if we've ever appointed
20 years
someone.
ago.
There we go. And this looks like it's sort of almost like a 5-minute interview, or yeah, is that sort of this? Right. Okay. So we would. Okay. So there weren't interviews that were done in any sort of other public setting, or was it a special? I mean, I guess my question is sort of, is a 5-minute interview enough time? Well, there's an application that's a sample application that's in here that's certainly good.
Yeah, that's pretty much a plagiarized directly from Santa Fe.
Yeah,
But, just to give you an idea, so we can have a discussion and maybe start the process, if you're going in that direction. And Eric and I talked about this and decided to give you this much information anyway, to give you a direction.
Yeah. No, I guess my curiosity was, is this the sort of common way that council members are appointed?
We did something in 1992, I think this last time.
Turn your microphone on.
The only time in my experience here when we've done this, and I can't remember real clearly, but it was, again, a council member moved out of the jurisdiction, and the council at that time, they established the criteria that they wanted to have someone who wouldn't be running for election and wanted to just fill, I believe it was less than 6 months, maybe 4 or 5 months. And the council didn't always agree on things, but they did agree on the one candidate they would appoint, Ken Lippy, who they all agreed had already served on the council, and they all got along with him well and knew he wasn't looking to be reelected, and they felt real safe and comfortable with him serving for the 5 months. Or do you remember, Tony? It was about that period, wasn't it? 5 or 6 months. And then, they went to an election. The election time was coming up. So it wasn't the same situation here in that this is a longer term, and, I guess you can put certain, Jim could explain, but you can put certain limits on it if you wanted to, I guess.
Yeah, there's
criteria.
Yeah, there's really no law on this, other than that you have the discretion to appoint whomever you want. So the process is yours. Obviously, the person has to be a resident of the town and a registered voter over 18, that sort of thing. Really, the only requirement of statute is that you have to appoint within 60 days. If not, then you're required to have an election. So I've seen this in other cities, and the processes vary, but they're typically the kind of things that you're considering: a questionnaire, or maybe an interview panel, public interviews, or what have you. But you wouldn't even have to do that. It's within your discretion to select.
And what's being recommended here is a call for applications, deadline for the receipt of those applications, a special meeting where we do the interviews, and then a council meeting later where we actually appoint.
Right, and what we did was we talked to San Rafael, and they felt their process was really well received by the public, and we thought, well, that's a good place to start rather than reinvent the wheel. Now, you can tweak different aspects of it. They had 14 candidates, so 6 minutes to them seemed like a long time when you had it all up. But, you really don't know until you get all your applications. But again, they felt their benefit, or their main point was they thought it was really transparent. Everyone saw everything. Courtesy that when someone's being interviewed, someone would be in the lobby, but for the actual council deliberations, everyone could come back in and listen to what's going on. But again, it's at your discretion or what you think is appropriate, but we thought it'd be helpful just to give you something to look at.
Larry?
Ryan's got over 2 years left on, he's almost got 3 years left on his term, so it's a long appointment. And I'm just wondering whether it's legal or advisable to put his seat on the ballot this coming November. We have council elections this November for 3 seats. So whether you could put his seat on the ballot in November to fill out the remainder of his term. It just seems.
I don't think you can do that.
Okay.
You know, it's my understanding.
That's a long
that he's
appointment.
appointed to fill the term of the person vacating the seat. You know, maybe Jim knows more about that, but I don't know of a circumstance where it's been done that way.
Was your question whether you could appoint somebody in the interim until November and then elect, or were you just saying we would just go to an election?
Well, I mean, I guess my question is, could you appoint him? Could you retroactively change his term since he's now vacated it, so that the seat would be up for election for a short term this November? If his seat was on the ballot this November, it would be a 2-year term.
Right. I don't think you can change the term. If you put it on the ballot, I'm not sure of how the calendar works. You have to put it on at the next statutorily authorized election date. I'm not sure if that's the November election or one before that.
Well, he and I were elected in November 2011. So his term will run until November 2015. So this is a long appointment.
I think the problem with that too is then that would make this election have it would
4
potentially
seats,
change
yeah.
4 seats. And I think one of the nice things about the system we have now is that we never, you know, overturning
I'm pretty sure
3
you
is,
can't do it anyway.
yeah, overturning 3 is 1, overturning
I'm pretty sure you can't
overturning
do it.
4 sounds
Because you're appointing someone to fill the term. I don't think you can mess with the term myself. I don't think there's any way
Okay.
to
Well,
do
it's
that, but-
just something. I mean, I think the San Rafael process was perceived well by the public. I know a couple of the candidates who went through it, and the comments varied, you know, as to how they felt it went. But I mean, I think the thing we want to do is we want to strictly adhere to the Brown Act so that the interviews are public. And, you know, it's awkward to do it like that, but that's what you have to do to avoid looking like you've made a backroom deal on the appointment. And, you know, it's kind of a difficult thing to do, really. Because there's been 3 districts that have done it. The Water District did it this year. The sewer district up in northern San Rafael just went through it. They couldn't make up their minds. And they kicked it up to Katie Rice and her cohorts at the Board of Supervisors.
And they kicked that back.
They kicked it back down. And they finally came up with a compromise candidate. So we'll see. You know, I mean, I think the San Rafael model is probably a good one for us to follow. I think we should give folks more than 5 minutes, but, you know.
Yeah.
Like Gary said, we talked about it, and Jim was involved in the conversation. We discovered
Good. Hit your mic, please. Thank you.
It was a place to start, you know, and like Garrett said, you can tweak it however you want, you know, give them 10 minutes, 15 minutes, we don't care. But if you have to end up with 20 candidates, that's going to be quite a arduous
Yeah, and do
thing.
we have to, we don't have
Maybe
to, at
make
this
that
point,
decision after
decide
you've
how
got
long
people you
they're,
got.
we don't have to decide how long their interviews are going
No,
to be
we
at this
certainly
point.
don't.
Yeah, we could just
Yeah.
advertise the position and decide that we were going
But
to appoint.
I think with the time constraints, to give you the most time to be the most thoughtful, you would want to start the process as soon as possible.
Yeah.
That's what we're thinking, you know.
After public comment, I would make the recommendation as provided by Judy, the town clerk, recommending that we direct staff to advertise the vacancy and call for applications to permit the council to make an appointment at an upcoming meeting.
And I would just add to that, as far as the application, it might be worth getting, I think if council members want to make suggestions to add to the application, before, just to give us the deadline so that we can have some input, but, you know, is it tomorrow?
Well, we can probably adjust these, yeah. Yeah.
Maybe to the end of the week, you know? But yeah, I think it should just be as straightforward process as possible, and let's see what happens.
Yeah. I would also like to open it up to members of the public. Are there comments from members of the public about this matter?
Mimi Newton, I just definitely agree we should not spend the money on the special election.
Well, I think, yeah, we're unanimous on that. So, I guess you feel directed, we should, I think we vote on this, right? Okay. Well, I would entertain a motion there. So moved. Oh, you already moved?
Second, I made with the amendment that we get a couple days to send you suggestions.
Okay, so we have a motion by Weinsoff and an amended second by Bragman, and all in favor? Aye. Aye. I think that's unanimous also. And so I would like to move to adjourn. Okay, okay. Bragman, Hartwell, all in favor? Aye. Aye. Thank you very much, and good night.